Hello and welcome to the Lifting the Iceberg podcast. My name is Tyler James Berger, and on this episode, I talked to Kelly Keefe, a reiki healer and cacao shaman based in New York City. I wanted to pick her brain on what brought her into the world of cacao shamanism, about the psychoactive effects of cacao, and how it can be used therapeutically. So, without any further ado, please welcome Kelly Keefe. Okay, so I'm sitting here with Kelly Keefe of Heartspace, and I'm excited to talk with you about cacao shamanism. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be a part of this and getting to dive into all the yummy cacao goodness.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I just want to ask you, first up, the broad question of what brought you to cacao as a plant medicine, and how did you fall down this rabbit hole of cacao shamanism?
Yeah, very similar to any other medicines that have come across my path. I feel the medicine found me. It was 2 summers ago now. I was at a couple of permaculture events, and there was ceremony occurring. And so I went, and I had such expansive heart opening that I was like, wow, this is a beautiful medicine. And I went home and I was like, I need to get my hands on cacao. Like, what is this? So I first went to the store and I bought the powdered cacao that you can get at a Whole Foods. Mm-hmm. And I started sitting with that. And then next thing I knew, I still don't know exactly how it happened. But I was invited to a ceremony happening at a space that's now become one of my, vibrational homes here in New York City. Before it was open to the public, I knew no one there. But I found myself sitting in a proper cacao ceremony. And it was during a time where my heart was going through a lot of confusion and transition. And it was just kind of here, this is what's going to help hold you through this and really work. And I started sitting in ceremony with this family, meaning brothers and sisters and tribe in Brooklyn, at least once a week for months. Mm-hmm. And that led me to going and studying in Guatemala, which led to doing a homestay with Nana Marina and Tata Pedro. And that's led me to now holding space here and just continuing to dive deeper and share the love medicine.
Mm-hmm. What was it specifically about cacao, the effects, the ceremony behind it? What was it specifically, like you mentioned, a feeling of having your heart opened? Maybe you could talk more about that, but what is it specifically about cacao that drew you in?
Yeah, it was one of those moments where I was led to something I didn't know that I was needing, where it was that sense of community where everyone is feeling safe to share openly. Mm-hmm. And really connect and feel whatever was being felt on the heart. I had done so much work years prior to this, doing deep healing and shedding layers, and I didn't realize how much growth had occurred and how much more growth I had to continue until I was showing up and sitting in circle every week and allowing this delicious medicine be able to help open where I'd feel emotions deeply. And it was either I was feeling a deep love and connection and being able to connect with people in a new way and share, or I was feeling the weight and feeling the sadness and really learning how to meet myself in these layers of love. Mm-hmm. Because what cacao does is it helps to break away the layers and the walls that we've placed around our hearts. Mm-hmm. And so that way we can just return back to love and really step into our true essence. Mm-hmm. And so in this process, there's those spaces of the walls are open and my heart is here. And then also times when you're running up to the walls that are there. So it's really helping us be present with what's going on underneath and helping guide us into our sense of love.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you experienced this dynamic in the visualizations that you've had on cacao? Because for me, my experience was with a cacao ceremony when my first cacao ceremony was with you. Mm-hmm. right where we're recording this right now. And I thought it was really interesting how pronounced my imagination was during your guided visualization. So we did the ceremony. You passed around these like intention cards that kind of anchored our introspection for the ceremony. But then you had us all kind of sit back and lay down, and you kind of hypnotized the group into a guided visualization of kind of going through this journey of like kind of giving and receiving. And I won't get too much into those details, maybe later. But what I noticed was my capacity to have dream imagery come to me that felt like I didn't have a hand in constructing was greater. So it's like just in a normal setting, if you ask someone to like think of a blue cow, they will be able to think of a blue cow. They'll be able to kind of imagine that image in their head. But I felt like, and that comes with a sense of you constructed that image. When you ask someone to think of a blue cow, it's not like they felt like they were given an image of a blue cow. There's a sense of personal construction there. When I did my cacao ceremony, I felt like the imagery that I was having in my experience was, I didn't have that same sense of it having been constructed by myself. Like I feel like it was kind of, maybe it broke the walls into that like essential dream state. And I can see like how getting into that dream state without having that little editor part of your mind have any hand or have any say in the imagery that comes up, I can see how that can promote like the most amount of healing. You know what I mean? And so is it through the dream imagery that you get during these visualizations where the healing takes place, the healing that you kind of qualitatively describe as opening walls? And because I very much had an experience like that in my narrative that I experienced during my visualization. So is it through the narrative dream state healing, I guess I could say, that you feel like this therapy, the therapeutic aspects of cacao shamanism takes place? Or is it something more like unconscious?
Yeah, good question. So there's a component to cacao that helps to lift our vibration and bring us closer to beyond the veil in and of itself. It's because it is such a sacred medicine. And the Mayans were aware of how special this plant is and how it's helping us to reconnect with the gods in that state. Every ceremony is very different in spaces. There's a lot of ceremonies happening more in the States where it's the combination of cacao and then going into sound and allowing that to happen. Whether it's in a space where I facilitate more in a guided journey, where we're infusing an element of Reiki moving through to help into surrendering deeply into the subconscious and dream state on top of it. No matter what method and methodology we're using, we're relaxing our physical body more. So that way we can really relax the body and keep the mind awake. And that is that physical component of cacao, that with the magnesium, it relaxes the body. And then it's also opening the blood vessels. So we're having that duality occur of a relaxed body, but an awakened mind. And the more that we're able to relax the physical body and we can allow the mind to do its thing and in a safe space, that we're essentially opening portals in ways when we come together in circle. And then also every time we sit with cacao, set the intentions, and we're working with powers and the energy greater than us. We're allowing ourselves to be taken away and be able to watch that movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's these tools help us be able to remember the movie. That's, we are just the person sitting in the back row watching this film. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is it's almost like cacao increases the access to whatever realm it is that we go into when we're dreaming, a realm that is clearly a lot of healing can be done in that realm. I think one of the primary purposes of why we dream is for our body and mind to metabolize and process unconscious emotions, problems, desires, anything like that. And I was really interested when I was looking more into cacao used as a plant medicine, it was used by, I forget exactly where, perhaps Guatemala, primarily as a medicine to facilitate dream work. And I was reading about this tribe. I was reading this book in, it's called The Dreams That Changed History. And he just explores the role that dreams have had in the development of our species. And he talks about this tribe where all of their gods represent dream beings, and all of their ceremonies are about getting into bridging this reality with the dream reality. And they used cacao as one of their primary plant medicines. And I've experienced, like I just said, the enhanced dream quality of the visualizations that happen. But do you notice anything happen with your dreams when you fall asleep a night after the cacao ceremony? Like, what about your actual sleeping dreams? Does the cacao have any effect?
My dream world as a whole is pretty active.
Yeah.
There's many times that the next day someone's like, you came to me last night and we did some work. And I'm like, I know, I was with you. So that's an interesting question. My dream world is vivid and active. I tend to notice on nights after ceremony, they can be a bit more vivid. I know that those who maybe don't work with cacao as regularly or don't work in the capacity of the other dream world and realms that I'm spending more and more time in. What tends to happen is, since we are in that deeper state of surrender and we have opened ourselves and set those intentions to do that deeper connection work, dreams tend to be much more vivid, and we're able to connect with those that are on the other side with more ease, and we can really tap in. A lot of water dreams tend to happen after ceremony, water being associated with emotions, really getting to navigate those seas and those waters and seeing that process moving through.
Well, the ocean is one of the oldest symbols of the subconscious as well. Wow, that's really interesting. I don't remember what my dreams were like the night after our ceremony. I wish I had been more attentive. But something that I have noticed when I did ayahuasca in Peru, I did a 10-day dieta with one ceremony every other day, so 5 ceremonies in that 10-day period. And I noticed that the dreams I had at night were resonant with my experiences during the day. I feel like my dreaming mind had a huge connection to my waking lucid experience. The two were talking to each other in a way, or there was a part of me that was trying to speak to my waking self through the dream, Now, that was a 10-day dieta where I had 5 ceremonies every other day. In Cacao Shamanism, are cacao ceremonies ever treated like that, either done in consecutive days in a row or every other day for a certain length of time? Or is it really just, most often, just one shot here and there? Or is that just kind of the Americanized cacao shamanic experience?
So it varies from the different tribes in how it's being used in the ceremonial space. Where Donna Marina was talking recently of how there's also different ways in which we can be utilizing cacao in ceremony. Like sometimes we're having a ceremony that is to honor cacao, and it's really all about her and the essence of it. There's times where we're coming together for ceremony, and cacao is being a property to help in the honoring of what the ceremony is going to be. And there's other times that we're using cacao as a medicine for ourselves. And so, is there set times of having it every other day or doing a dieta with it? Probably somewhere. I don't know personally.
Just depends on the person and how they're using the tool.
Yeah, and cacao is being used a lot in various plant medicines of what's sitting with ayahuasca or any other ceremonies, really being used as a nourishing tool after an integration piece, because it really is a great tool to help us integrate and be able to sit in our experience. She's much more gentle than the other plant medicines that, that we can find ourselves sitting and working with. And so she's a great tool to be able to nourish and really process what's going on. And she helps navigate that. So we call her Mama Cacao because she's so loving. And, she really wants to just nourish us and hold us. And sometimes she guides us into spaces that we need to navigate because it's for our own good, just like a mom would. A good mom, a healthy mom, whatever that is in societies, our ideal mom. And would be able to bring us through to that. And so when I'm working with people and they're feeling really called to start to work with her, I do suggest doing, a series of anywhere from 7 to a month long period of sitting with her every day. And really seeing that these plants we're forming a relationship with them. They carry an essence. It's not just, let me go get my fix, drink it, and I feel good. This is carrying an essence, and we have an ability to really establish a relationship and form a healthy relationship and see the more that we can nourish that, the more that it'll be like a bond and a transition.
For sure. Well, it's anything that we take into our body is directly affecting the chemistry of our biology. We're directly interfacing with it. And something that I think is really interesting that I noticed when I did a ceremony with you is your use of the masculine and feminine symbolic archetypes. Like you just referred to cacao as her, like the mother, and applied so many female characteristics to it. And even in your guided visualization, you did a lot with movements with the right hand as opposed to movements with the left hand. Taking being a feminine force and giving being represented as a masculine force. And I think it's really interesting how certain plant medicines are often given a feminine quality. Everyone I know who has done ayahuasca has felt mother ayahuasca. There is that maternal, deeply feminine presence that you get from this medicine, from the way it interacts with your conscious experience. But then there's also like San Pedro, Huachuma, which is called the grandfather medicine, which I haven't personally done. But again, it's the same thing on the other end of the symbolic spectrum. So I guess my question is, why is cacao symbolically represented as feminine? And how do you use the feminine and the divine feminine and the divine masculine archetypes to kind of map your work with these medicines?
Yeah, so the answer for me is, plants, they are an essence, they are an energy, just like you and I. We are masculine or feminine by, a perfect balance, and whatever is the prominent essence that we carry is what's going to be there. Where Mama Cacao came forth, there's theory that she came directly from the stars, as is. We celestial beings know that this is otherworldly. The vibration that's within it is definitely from the stars. where she's coming from such a rich space of fertile earth. That's who she is. And I forget the other part of the question.
Like how you use
ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to me in crafting space that we're constantly returning to, we're going in this amazing time of divine union within ourselves, within one another.
Between the polarities.
Yeah. And like, we can be our optimal selves when we're balancing the masculine and the feminine and not being shy to embrace the feminine and to receive and to be moving in that, but to be cultivating this balance of give and take within ourselves at all times. And so ceremony's never scripted, it's feeling into that day. What's the energy that's at that space? Who's, has decided to come, feeling into the energy of that, feeling into moving ahead and kind of getting a gauge of what's going to be needed. And then it's in that ceremony creates itself.
Yeah.
And so it can be interesting when like planning for ceremonies, like, what do I put as the description? How do I know? Or it's like, okay, I can check out the Mayan Cosmovision and see what energy will be playing in those days. So I can give a general pulse, but I won't know until we're all sitting, like when we're really feeling into that, what is needed. And I live to serve. And when going into circle, my deepest intention is to allow something larger than me to flow through to guide what is needed for the collective of that space. And so it's usually whatever way is being needed to bring that unionship between ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a good way of representing different problems that people might have. And the masculine and feminine archetype don't really have anything to do with male or female, because both are, like, as you said, both are represented in each one of us. It's like no one is just yin or no one is just yang. We have the yin yang within each one of us. And like an example in terms of like the masculine and feminine aspects of giving and receiving. Receiving is represented as feminine, and I can just, a lot of men have issue with feeling secure, asking for help. We are pressured, I think, both by external forces and internal innate forces to feel like we need to be the providers, like we are the ones that are supposed to be the boundless, limitless sun that can just provide and give and never need anything. But we're not the sun, we're human. And sometimes as a man, you need to open up and be open about needing to receive help or receive, and it takes a huge amount of vulnerability to open up to admitting a need for receiving, whether it be love or help or guidance, and that's just how bringing the feminine into the exaggerated masculine can produce healing, and yeah, I'm very fascinated by that. Now, something else I want to ask you is, when you use cacao, it's important for you to ceremonialize it, and you describe like sitting with it and being with it. When we live in a society that will kind of just chug some chocolate milk or drink a cool new cacao energy drink from Whole Foods, and they'll drink it on their walk to work and go, that tastes good, and they won't really sit with it, and they definitely won't ceremonialize it. What is the purpose for you of the ceremony, and what does a cacao ceremony do that just drinking the cacao won't?
Totally. And just a touch for any male identifying, or anyone who's like listening, who's like working on really cultivating that healthy relationship with their divine masculine, cacao is such a beautiful gift to be able to be finding yourself in safe spaces or create that space within yourself of, you know, softening into the feminine side and finding the beauty in, you know, how strong of a man or how strong our masculine side can be. The more we can soften, we don't need to be strong. Like we're strong in being softer.
Yeah.
And the ceremonial aspect, it really boils down to intention so often. You know, I get this question a lot.
Why ceremony?
Yeah. And also like, you know, maybe even just for those who aren't aware, like what is the difference between ceremonial grade versus the cacao? I mentioned, you know, I had it at festivals, and then I found myself going to Whole Foods, and I'm not knocking getting superfoods and putting cacao into our bodies that way. Yeah. The difference of a ceremonial grade versus the foods that we can get on the shelves in a Whole Foods, or like Whole Foods market, is that there is even less production that's occurred to it. So it's going from pod through a 5-step process into a bar. And when working with ethically sourced cacao, which myself and many other ceremonials that I know doing this beautiful work are being sure that we know the tribes and the spaces that these are coming from. So we know that it's being made with love and pure intention all the way through. There's been no machines really in it. There's been nothing but this high energy of the place in which it was and where it was produced. And so we're consuming that. Bringing us back to how you're saying everything that we have, you know, with our chemistry, it's also the same. Our chemistry is equaling our magnetic field. Yeah. And so when we're working with ceremonial grade, we're working with something that is a different level of purity. It's that real potent connection with the divine in a greater sense. And so when we're taking that idea of ceremony equaling sacredness and a deeper sense of purity and higher connection to the divine, that kind of brings it in of the difference of why it's great in a ceremonial setting. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, you know, an elaborate ceremony where there's an altar set in the middle and it becomes this big thing and you lose, you know, track of time and, you know, you've invested an hour or two into your day. You know, it can really be lighting a candle, saging, sitting for a moment and breathing an intention into the cacao, going through a list of a couple things you're grateful for. During our ceremony, we did moving through each of the elements and connecting and saying our thanks to what they teach us and being able to find that within ourselves. And so it's just taking a moment of really sitting with, wow, this medicine, pause of my busy day, I can connect back to all that is, even in the middle of a busy city. Not everyone who listens to this is going to live in New York. But just having that space to connect to the oneness of all that is and be able to see this beautiful ability to set intention into this guide that will bring us through and be able to sit in that. It's just finding any space we can to pause and move a little bit slower and remember that we're connected to something so much bigger is what ceremony really helps us to do.
Yeah, and just being mindful with it, not just drinking it as if it's just something that solely affects your body by its physical constitution. You know, it's a mind-body medicine.
Yeah, and she's so receptive, you know, where when we're preparing her for ceremony, we want to be really like thinking about what are we listening to? What are we dancing to? What are we thinking? What is the love? What is being put into it? Because she's so receptive. She's like a sponge. And so when we're putting that in, we're going to be taking that. And so if we're moving through and not putting intention into it and, you know, just taking that moment to think and see and visualize like how we want to move forward and use her as a tool, she's like, okay, cool. You want to keep moving quickly and be mindless. And so we're going to experience more of that. I mean, she's going to help calm us down and we'll feel a buzz. You know, there's like that heightened awareness that happens, but we're missing the beautiful potential of magic that can occur if we're just not seeing that we're holding a cup of magic and access to our powers.
Yeah. Wow. So something else I want to ask you, we're sitting over 2 mugs of cacao right now.
Yeah.
And this is a different recipe than what you've had when we did the ceremony. Different setting, clearly. But I noticed even more, and I'm noticing it now, especially like when I get to the bottom of the mug. I noticed, especially with what we had during the ceremony, it tasted good at first, but then it was very hard to get down. Like it started to taste like chalky and a little bit of cayenne pepper in there. So it's just very activating in, not the easiest way. But there's something about it not tasting too good that makes me believe that it's medicinal. And I noticed this connection, mostly with ayahuasca. Like, ayahuasca tastes bad. Ayahuasca tastes like dirt, Slim Jims, and moldy coffee grounds all blended up and put into a shot glass. But there is some connection between it tasting bad and the experience that I got from it. I feel like it can't taste good, or else something is lost. Have you thought at all about the importance of like a plant medicine like this not tasting good? Do you think it's something like the taste of it is a form of like rite of passage for the experience itself? Or do you think this tastes like delicious through and through?
I think the blend changes.
Yeah.
Like there's been some that I'm just like, oh my God, like I just want to drink a million cups because it tastes so good.
Yeah.
There's also times where I've sat in ceremony and to one person it tastes like the best thing ever, and to others it tastes like medicine. And there's some times where I sit in ceremony at the assemblage quite often. And I sit with one sister, and she's been coming for months, and she's just starting to get to a place where she can almost drink the cup, where it tastes so strongly medicinal to her, and her reaction to it is so strong that it's into others can drink it and be like, this is the best tasting thing. So I really think it is personal to each person as they're creating this relationship. And sometimes a blend is hitting someone where they're like, oh, this is exactly, hitting. And other times it's like, this tastes like earth. Yeah. And like, especially as
tastes like earth. That's a good way of putting it.
That's what I always like to tell myself when I'm drinking anything like really grassy. Whenever I'm like having something, I'm like, this is a earth. Glass of medicine. Or I'm always just like, earth. So yeah, it's definitely, I think I've been working with cacao for so long. Sometimes I can forget of like the bitterness of like, I'm eating like a regular chocolate bar. I'm like, if it's not cacao, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I've gotten so used to this.
Have you ever drank chocolate milk since your whole journey with cacao? Like, have you ever like gone back just to take a sip, just to see what like
live on the wild side?
Yeah.
No, but now I'm feeling a little crazy.
Feeling dangerous?
Yeah, I have some almond milk in there. I might have to go get some chocolate melted down.
Well, is there something like the way you see chocolate being used in society? Like, what's your perspective on that? Like, what do you think of when you see a box of Cocoa Puffs? Or just like chocolate candy and cacao? It's almost like we're raping this medicine. We're using it in such a commercial consumeristic way just to like press those little neurochemical buttons in our body to get that little buzz, that quote unquote sacred buzz that this plant medicine can offer. And our society is just like, I feel like it's ruining it. What's your perspective when you see that?
There's so much I see. Where there's also just a lot of actions out of integrity when we're looking at the way we're producing and sharing chocolate in society right now. Where when we're looking at the chocolate bars and the mass production, or Cocoa Puffs is a whole nother world. So like even saying a chocolate bar that is labeled as 75% cacao, and these things that we look at, we're like, oh cool, well it's really dark chocolate, it's here, it's there. Like, again, we're getting closer, and I'm not, whatever feels good to people, do you in general.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the efforts and the steps that we're taking and that everyone's taking on their journey. And I see in those spaces, there's also still just a lot of knowledge just not out there for the masses to know yet, where what's happening in the chocolate industry is that so much of cacao is being stripped of the nutrients. The actual parts that are the medicine that the soul seeks is being sold off to the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And they're taking whatever's left over. That's how we get our cocoa butters and how we get different things. You'll see cacao and these different nutrients and magnesiums and the vitamins and all the amazing, nutritional values of this. And they're seeing it as a paycheck and selling that. And then they're stuffing what's left with sugar and false everything's, and then that's just leaving people fueling their addictions and finding it's messing with their biochemistry. Where if you think about it, more often than not, people find chocolate to be a very soothing thing. It's like our soul knows that this is really nourishing and this is going to help me feel good. And it's like we really just want some chocolatey goodness when we're needing it, and so we go to that. And so at this innate knowing, we've known that chocolate is a beautiful soul-returning medicine. But because it's been hidden and things are, going the way that they have up until this point, there's the actual part that we're wanting and seeking when we reach for those candy bars is missing. Where we can go and turn to cacao and further unfold into the love that goes into preparing it and sitting with it. It's in those moments that we can actually find what is our soul seeking in those moments.
For sure. I mean, we live in a culture that is so consumed by how things affect those few inches between our lips and our throat, just like hitting those taste buds. And I could totally see how the industrialization of cacao has like stripped away the components that have resonance with your body, but is there there's something to like people eating chocolate after a breakup, or like people eating chocolate just like as like an emotional thing. Like what's that all about? Someone eating chocolate after a breakup.
Well, think about it, like it's a broken heart, right? When what brought me to ceremony, divine guidance, it was during a time when a previous partner and I were going through that space of like change, and my heart was like, what's happening? And I was dropped into ceremony to like work through it, and I'm like still like, oh, thank everything for cacao during that time, because like to see how I was with cacao, without it, oh my goodness, like it's the medicine of the heart. Like it's our spirit, our ultimate knowing always knows what we need, and we'll be guided to it as it's there. And so, my philosophy is the heart is speaking there, and it's just more and more that we're getting to realize like, oh, cool, we were hearing what we really wanted. And now we can see the level of caliber available to really provide what our heart's calling out for.
Yeah, for sure. Now, my next question is, what does cacao provide that no other psychedelic or plant medicine can provide? Like, what does cacao do that ayahuasca can't, that LSD can't, that sage can't? All these other plant medicines, I feel like, have their own original, unique essence that can't be reproduced in other different medicines. What is unique about cacao that isn't present in anything else?
That's a big question,
Yeah.
Tyler. I feel so bold speaking on behalf of all of cacao versus all other beings in the universe. I haven't personally sat with ayahuasca yet. So it's hard for me to be able to do it before and after that experience. And so feel free of like, if you're like, actually, Cal, ayahuasca, same thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll find the answer somewhere. But for me, what I find is cacao has this way of continuing on the journey with us, and her essence is always following through. And she knows our truth and connects so deeply to the heart. Really tapping into this space and knowing that this can lead, and it's going to allow us to step into the leader that we're truly meant to be. And she guides it in a way that's so gentle and allows us to find it in our own time versus some other things that can be like, boom, like in your face and just like, here it is, now go figure it out. Where cacao's more like, this way. Hey, no, go this way. And like very loving and gently, like, okay, I hear what you need. Now go this way. Go this way. So she's very soft. She knows where she's bringing you, but it's very soft and gentle in her demeanor.
Yeah. Oh man, ayahuasca feels like your soul is getting punched.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. So cacao is very gentle. I feel that. I've never heard of someone having trauma from a cacao experience.
Yeah.
There are so many people who have like deep traumas from unprepared for psychedelic experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like cacao is synonymous with healing.
Yeah.
Where ayahuasca is very expansive. And again, I'm speaking from sitting in spaces with many who travel, of it's more of the seeker, and receiving, and deep healings do occur with it, and I know my time is coming to sit. Cacao is more of the, hey, we're just going to help to create a space for you to just be in what's now. And really just be able to soften into what is.
Being able to break down those walls, being able to increase your receptivity towards what you need or what insights you need to be facilitated.
Yeah, I had yesterday I sat with myself in ceremony, and the phrase that came up, and as you know, I was in it yesterday. Like I was just really feeling this energy that just needed to be moved through. And the phrase that came up as I began to drink her was, it's time to go in so you can come out softer. And it was one of those where it's like, ooh, we're about to do the work right now, but it was such a great reminder of that's what this journey is with cacao, is creating that space to be able to go in ourselves so we can be softer in how we carry ourselves with ourselves, how we're able to engage in connection with others, and being able to be in that space of like, oh, I don't have to put a guard up. I don't need to be strong and taught. Like, I can just speak really open and vulnerably and be like, hey, here's my heart, on my sleeve, and it's safe because I'm taken care of.
Now, you talk a lot about the heart and living from the heart. And we live in a very head-centric culture. We're always trying to get ahead. We're always trying to be on top. We're always trying to, be the king on top of the hill in the highest castle. We live in a very, in a culture that values primarily the cerebral, cephalized. That's the word, right? Cephalized part of the body. But you talk a lot about sinking into the heart, living from the heart. And this is something that the Egyptians thought. The Egyptians thought the brain was just secondary to the heart. And you feel that just qualitatively in your experience sometimes. but when I say you, I mean me, at least in my personal experience, like in my most like meaningful moments, or in those moments where I'm getting that inspiration on what I should do, where I should go, what I need, I'm feeling this tingling in my solar plexus that gives me this light, like transcendent feeling that I feel like comes stocked with clarity and integrity. So what is it? What do you mean when you say we need to live more in the heart and lead our lives from the heart? What does that feel like? What does that look like? What does that cause?
Yeah. Yes. So from a physical standpoint of like, what does that feel like? It tends to be this sense of just lightness and living a bit calmer in our bodies. Being able to really feel the buzz in the head and move that into the center of the chest. Mm-hmm. Tend to feel ourselves be like actually like shoulders lifted back a little bit and just like really feeling from here. And there can be this energy that pulsates. And we have the electromagnetic field that's around our entire body. And the space around the heart is so much stronger than anywhere else. And so when we're able to realize that this storyline that's happening in between the ears is just the brain doing its job to talk, and the more that we can say, okay, do your thing, I'm going to dip out of here for a little bit, and I'm just going to go breathe deeper into my belly to get into here. The more we start to realize, we're like, oh, there's another conversation happening. Yeah. The brain's still
it's just not
talking.
The loudest
You just left the party.
Yeah.
You left the party up in the head, and you decided to go hang out in the quieter, cozy room in the house. Like there's like a house party happening, and upstairs is like where it's like bumping, and you're just like, I can't hear anything because like there's so much movement. And then it's like, oh, downstairs there's like a little cozy like space where there's like a cuddle puddle and just like some cacao and like sage is burning, and like, oh cool, I'm gonna hang out down here. So it's just calmer, and it's there where it's just like you can hear a different song and you can hear wisdoms come through that feel better. And it's like, whoa, this is leading to something. And we just notice that the more that we're able to spend time in the calmer room of this house that's our body, the more we can say, oh, I'm just more relaxed. And I'm experiencing things that feel better and are actually allowing me to hang out in this room more. Because the mind, its intentions are good. Its intentions are to keep us safe. But we're living in this state of like, oh, we need to be safe. Like, we're good. We're safe. We can go downstairs and hang out. Yeah. And the heart's like, yo, there's like saber-toothed tigers aren't running around anymore. You're good. Like, just listen to me. And we're about to go have some fun. Yeah. And it's like, oh, cool. Like, wait, we're going to have fun. Yeah. And like, tell me, like, what do you really want to do with your life? Like, how do you want to spend your days? Oh, well, funny that you asked me that. You know, I haven't stopped and thought about that because I've been told my whole life how I'm supposed to live my life.
I've been running from the saber-toothed tiger. You've been telling me they've been extinct for 30,000 years.
Wait, so I can, like, enjoy my days and be, like, more relaxed and do things I want to do? Yeah. Like, and so it's just this opportunity to, like, tap into another room that's been happening the whole time. Yeah. And it just feels calmer and more fun and deeper connections with ourselves. Like, we understand who we are, and then we're able to learn from others and share simultaneously the truths of the quiet room. I love this house party. I'm going to use the house party again. That's a great metaphor. Escaping the house party to go into the cuddle puddle in the basement. Man, that's a great way of describing it. Wow. Yeah, I mean, people forget that we don't think with our brain. That I have my bachelor's in psychology from Temple, and during my academic life in psychology, scientists treat humans like a brain on a stick, where it's the brain that is the director, the driver, the pilot of this body, whose only function is to keep the brain alive long enough to keep the gene pool
active and flowing. But people forget that we think with our entire body, like our brain is just the cephalized. The word cephalization means the process of the head or part of the nervous system condensing into a more solid, concentrated point. So there was a time where almost all, like the most complex multicellular life was just worms, right? Worms that are just like the same diameter across the whole length of their body. But then cephalization started to occur where part of their nervous system like got a little bit bigger right at the head. And that process just began and it got bigger and bigger and bigger until human beings evolved with these huge brains, bigger relative to body size than any other animal. And that comes with so many blessings. Our brains are miraculous and allow us to have these deep visual experiences as the result of interfacing with these plant medicines. And it allows us to build cities and have conversations that can be spread on the thing called the internet. And we can put rocket ships into space. The brain is an amazing thing.
Oh, yeah.
But, you need to listen to your heart. Yeah, you need to follow your heart and take your brain with you. You should always have your heart in front and your brain behind. And that's because the heart, not just physically, but the heart has understood symbolically as the total, how would I even say it? Your heart is the amalgamation of the senses, the influence of the senses from your body, from like your whole entire being. I feel like my heart is like my whole body, that my brain is just orchestrating well and kind of like existing as a part of, and it of course is one with. But in the heart is all the wisdom, the deep, innate, evolutionary wisdom that existed before the brain developed all these, outer cortical layers. It's that deepest, most intuitive part of yourself. I guess that's what I mean. The heart for me is my intuition, because when I have that sense of intuition, it's not coming to me as a thought. It's coming to me in a manifest, heart-centered feeling that I get in my torso. I get feelings of intuition, of knowingness in following your gut is also another. When I follow my gut, I also kind of lump that in to the experience of following my heart. I guess my heart is just like my anything neck down, I feel like is my heart.
Totally.
Yeah. And how do you actually practice living heart first, like in your life? Do you have any specific examples in mind where you just kind of like stopped the brain and like checked in with your heart?
Yeah, so I've been getting to watch this. It's very interesting operating a team or a business when I'm living in integrity of following my heart. Where I had a meeting today where we're doing web design and we're going through, and I like was going and I'm watching then the brain starting to take over, and we're going into more like, and I stopped and I was like, hold on. I just stopped and I tuned into my heart and I was like, yeah, okay, so we need to change the plan and do this and that. Yeah. And I'm blessed.
So it came to you as like an intuition.
Yeah.
Something that wasn't so cognized.
Yeah. Like it's really, I just like to check in myself like, left brain. If I'm starting to feel angst, I'm like, this isn't in alignment. Something's happening where I'm pushing and I'm really tuning into a should. It's a story either I'm telling myself of I should do it this way, or it's something I've picked up along the way of this is how it should be done.
Don't should on yourself.
Yeah, don't should on yourself. I'm shooting all over the place. And like really, like, and it's like, okay, just taking a moment and like I call it to myself, like left brain. I'll call friends out on it too. Like they're like, I really do this, but this isn't. I was like, you are left braining right now. Like chill out. Like let us flow in, and just really coming back into like hands on the heart and being like, yo, what feels good? And coming back to a lot of it comes for me in this journey of like finding I'm going into my head when I have a desired outcome that I'm wanting. And then it's coming back into the reality of like the heart of like, okay, what is it that I'm truly desiring? Mm-hmm. Like, what is the feeling that I'm looking for in this? Because that's like, we're feeling seekers, right? Like we want to feel a certain way within our vibration. It's like, okay, what do I want to feel? Like, what's the heart really asking for? Oh, it's this. Okay. Like, how can I fulfill that in a way that's nourishing? And it's like, okay, the brain is coming up with just, I want to feel better. Mm-hmm. I know I want something different than what it is, and this is what it needs to be. I need to feel better. And just like naming story and be like, okay, heart, clearly we're not happy. What do you want? What's the true need and what's the desire? And then tune into, okay, and how can we do this? And then hearing it. Yeah.
So, last question. Who is Cacao for?
Everybody. Really though, like I was so grateful to get the opportunity to lead a ceremony for a group of kids this summer, where we had kids ranging from 4 to 9 years old.
Wow.
And I sat in ceremony it was myself and 13 other kids and 1 other adult.
No way.
It was the cutest thing. I have a video. I'll show it to you. The cutest and like a revelation of like, we really are building the new world. Is there. So kids in Guatemala, kids are sitting in a ceremony. Kids are doing tobacco ceremony. I won't bring us into the whole tangent, but like they are brought up in, this is what we do. We work with these medicines. We sit in ceremony. This is for anyone who wants to connect deeper with themselves. It's for people who want to connect deeper with others. It's people who are feeling like, oh, I really just need to feel like I'm having a nice, loving hug and like nourishment. It's a medicine that's so gentle and can be done for anyone. Only person that it's not for is someone who is like really allergic to chocolate. Yeah. Unless you're allergic to chocolate, like.
Yeah. Why would anyone have a reason to not try it?
Scared to get vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like I attempted to do a ceremony with my family this summer as well.
Wow.
And I was like, and I was so jazzed. I was like, all right, Keefe family ceremony. Here we come. We're diving in, guys. We're going to do some clearing. And we got work to do. But I was like, I've done a lot. And so like I show up in these like family spaces and I see the transformation of my relationships with them and their own healings through my own healing and, their journey. And I was like, oh my God, let's do this. And they're like, my dad was looking at me like, girl, you crazy. He did let me like sage him and he sat, but he didn't go into it.
He didn't drink it.
He did not drink it.
Wow. You told him it was just chocolate. Like it was.
I shared too much. It was
chocolate. Oh,
I shared too much. Yeah. I shared that it helps to open the heart, and that we're gonna have the opportunity.
That sounds like some hippie shit.
That's some hippie shit. My emotions.
Yeah.
You want me to feel?
What are those?
You're gonna make me feel emotion. I'm good. It's always so fun to see the chosen paths we've taken over the interactions.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a level of meeting ourselves that we're really moving in society, and we're blessed to be in a time where more and more people are like, like people are actually are doing something. Like people are genuinely happier, like where people are starting to see like the work. It's not a front, like it is an actual movement, and people are living more fulfilled, and it's magic is real, and it involves sitting and drinking chocolate and working with plants and feeling our feelings so we can transmute them. So there's a level of fear of meeting ourselves where we're at, and there's a level of fear of the unknown that keeps people away. But like, come sit in a circle, drink some chocolate. Like, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for providing this. And if someone wanted to sit with you or find out more about you and what you do and your work, where can they go? Where can you lead people?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
So people can reach me through Instagram at heartspace.co or my personal page. Either or, you'll find us. I am Kelly Keefe. And then you can always go to the site heartspace.co or email me at info@heartspace.co and just put in the title like Cacao Things or I heard you on the Lifting Iceberg podcast, something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And let me just say Kelly comes highly recommended by myself. I had a really amazing experience sitting in your ceremony, and just thank you so much for what you do. And thanks again for being on the podcast.
Likewise. Thanks for creating this time of circle. I always appreciate podcasts where it's like, since time and energy knows no bounds, we're sitting in circle with whoever's listening to this right now, wherever they are.
Yeah.
They're part of the circle that we've created right now. So thank you for whomever is sitting with me right now that we're feeling into. Thank you for sitting with us tonight.
You can find more about Kelly by going to her website, heartspace.co, or by following her on Facebook and Instagram. You can stay up to date on any new podcasts at liftingtheiceberg.com or by following Lifting the Iceberg on Facebook and Instagram. This podcast is available on Spotify and iTunes. Thank you to Alexa Spaddy for designing the graphics for this podcast. You can find her at alexaspaddy.com. Thank you to Kerusu for the soundtrack Stay With Me. You can find Kerusu on Spotify, YouTube, and Soundcloud.